Welcome back to America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
And I'm John Bachman. J.D., we're just taking a quick look here at the story happening now. The Obama administration announcing yet another delay to a provision of Obamacare here. And as we look at this, as we get ready to officially start the 2014 election season with Texas primary today, it's very interesting when you look at this in the grander scheme of things about what's going to happen in Congress, and will people really throw out the bums?
You know, John, if you're scoring at home, I believe this is the 33rd executive action taken unilaterally. It is all designed for the midterm elections because failing to do this, a critical deadline concerning care for Americans would have hit just prior to the November elections. This is all about politics, not about health care.
All right, speaking of politics, speaking of elections, we have Andi Tillis here with us. How's it going, Andi? You
Great, John, thank you.
What some of the challenges might be facing these incumbents here in 2014?
Well, we have a new poll that is actually surveying, and it is showing that the Republicans are way out in the lead and that people actually would like to see a fresh face in the White House. So I feel that the polls are they're very good right now, but they were actually the opposite last month. So
shows you how quickly things can change.
Exactly.
You know, Andy, there's really nothing new under the sun. As a recovering member of Congress, it always seemed because Congress had such low numbers, your goal was to say, well, Congress as an institution stinks, but my member of Congress is okay. And yet this new Washington Post ABC poll says that 70% of the respondents would vote for a fresh face. This, as an old guy who was both a challenger and incumbent, this is a target-rich environment for Tea Party types on the right and for people who may have just gotten frustrated and say, I'm going to run for office, kind of like Mr. Smith goes to Washington.
100%.
Let's take a look again at those numbers, and you can kind of go through them with us as we get them back up here on the screen, and tell us what you found out.
Absolutely. The Washington Post and ABC found that in a poll, 34 states with Senate elections in the fall, 50% of voters are actually favoring Republicans, while 42% favor the Democrats. And in the House, voters were split. They had 46% saying that they would support a Democrat and 45% a Republican. And a similar poll, like I was saying, taken in January, actually had these figures reversed. So the poll also indicated widespread dissatisfaction with Washington lawmakers, and there's less than a 25% of Americans saying that they were actually willing to vote for their current representative. So nearly 7 in 10% say that they would actually lean toward voting for a fresh face come fall, and that's the highest percentage recorded in history in the ABC poll and Washington Post. And the president, his job approval rating remains the same as it was in January, 46%, with 50% disapproving.
When I take a look at this, and you just have to take a look at what goes on in polling, look at who they talk to. 1,002 adults. Adults.
Right.
Not registered voters, not likely voters. So this is built in, at least those of us who view this from the right say, oh, this is built in for a little cushion for Democrats, at least in terms of issues. And of course, that's another part of this poll. But always be leery, again, if you're scoring at home, always be leery of a poll that simply says adults were questioned.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't get age groups for the adults either. But JD, you know, and Andy, maybe you have some thoughts on this too. We're seeing so many incumbents retiring this election cycle. Guys like Henry Waxman, who's been in Congress maybe forever. Representative Dingell also stepping down in Congress forever. How much is this type of polling information? I'm sure there's internal polling going on as well in these congressional offices. Is that contributing to these retirements?
It's really an all of the above situation because, yeah, you do take a look at the public mood. But you also take a look at who's waiting in the wings. For example, you mentioned John Dingell. His wife, Debbie Dingell, is now running for that seat in Michigan. John Dingell, the Dean of the House. To show you how long John Dingell's been in Congress, he was there when I was sworn in as a member of the first Republican majority in 40 years, and he is still serving. With the exception of a 2-year interlude in World War II, he has been in Congress, and his father before him. So that Dingell seat is dynastic. Now, in the state I used to represent in Congress, Arizona, Ed Pastor, the dean of the Arizona delegation, likewise announcing a retirement. He's taking a look also, I believe, at setting up a family lineage. That seat drawn to be very favorable to Democrats. It's a majority Hispanic district. So in two very different districts involving two senior Democrats, the MO is the same. Right now, it seems the public is in favor of a fresh face, but given the demographics and the voter registration of our district, here's our best chance to pass it along to someone maybe with the same last name or certainly with the same party affiliation.
Yeah, I know they got probably just reams of Dingle campaign literature that they won't have to reprint by keeping it a dynastic seat just like that. You know, the redistricting, that's a good point. In last election cycle, Kiko Canseco was kind of a victim of something similar that you mentioned here. How much is that also playing in to this?
Well, redistricting, and it's very interesting. Texas was in a situation where the Republicans finally got control and they made changes. And you may recall there was a court case about that a few years ago. North Carolina was probably the case study of the most effective change for the Republican Party. Now, that's my native state, my home state of Arizona. What happened there, Andy? Very, very crafty. A ballot initiative, fair districts, fair elections, that took redistricting out of the hands of the legislature, gave it to an independent panel. The story behind that was fascinating. Ostensibly, there was supposed to be Democrat representation, Republican representation, and an independent. Turns out the lady in this last round of redistricting who was selected as the independent, married to a prominent Tucson Democrat attorney. They brought in the Obama demographers into a majority Republican state. As a net result, there are more Democrats representing Arizona in the U.S. Congress than there are Republicans. So redistricting, you do have that partisan kind of identification,
Sure,
even when it's a so-called good government initiative. But
you got to really pay attention to those redistricting efforts, because there are oftentimes unintended consequences and intended consequences which can really alter the makeup of Congress.
Take a look at Florida. A lot of impatient state legislators want to leave Tallahassee and go to Washington. They'd love to serve on the redistricting panel.
All right, Andy.
I was going to say, I find that these polls are obviously a popularity contest. Most of the people are very unhappy with what's happening right now with Obama, with Obamacare, with the government, and there's a lot of political things that are being overlooked as far as bigger issues.
Thank you, Andy. We'll have to leave that there. We're running out of time. We've got to get to commercial break, but thank you very much, and thanks for that insight. All right, when we come right back, we'll have more here, and we'll have more on the show to discuss military suicides, a new troubling study, right after this.